Greetings, my fellow freedom lovers, sovereign thinkers. Thank you for tuning into the LL3 podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful Tampa Bay area of Florida. And today's date is Friday, October 23rd, 2020. Well, so next week will be Halloween. Just wondering how many people are going to go out there and disobey the orders in some places. All the drama and fear and anxiety. Yes, many people consider Halloween as a satanic holiday, but many others pay homage to the dead, to the fallen ancestors, Celtic, the Nordics, and all that. Even the Spanish. I can go on and I was watching some of that. I was watching that debate, and I gotta say. Wow, very unimpressive by Biden. You know, they never really talked about foreign policy. It had to be actually been brought up. And it was really funny because Joe Biden made a claim that he didn't get any foreign money from these people. And, of course, Trump had his falters too, don't get me wrong, because I'm not really crazy about either of them. However, when you try to point the finger at one person and blame them for everything, don't be surprised if they're just actually talking about themselves. Joe Biden has been a career politician for over 40 years. All you gotta do is look at his track record. Man, it's pretty baseless indeed. Just another pawn for the so-called tyrants in Washington, D.C. So those are the things I'm not, I just get a big kick out of it. I didn't go too ape over it. However, all they are is just an elected ambassador being elected from the states. All you gotta do is read Article 2 of the U.S. Constitution. Social justice and systemic racism and all that. Raising the minimum wage, that's just the same old unenumerated obligations for the federal government. And of course, the Affordable Care Act, it's null and void. Feds have no obligations. If you know what's funny about the whole healthcare crisis before the ACA came out, if they would have repealed or the states nullified the Health Maintenance Organization Act of 1973 that was signed during the Nixon administration, passed and signed, healthcare probably would have been a little bit different. And of course, fiat money, that really helps out. One of those areas, always got to study the history on what happened. Well, enough of that. Going to do a couple of articles, narrate a couple of them from Mises.org. And this one here is very interesting, of course. Let me see here. Ooh, let me see what I can do here. Just trying to get this thing going. No, nothing. Nada. No can do. Shit. Excuse me. Just trying to get things to make sure we're trying to get it to. Okay, right there. Come on, work with me, baby. No, I don't want to do that. Dang it. Okay, perfect. I know what to do. These don't want to cooperate. Alright, well. Try to do this one more time, but I'm going to proceed. Bear with me, folks. Yeah, everyone wants to kiss the world they walk on. Kiss the floor. They want to walk on here. Okay. Excellent. Looks like I may have got it. Alright. This one here, about politics. The Privilege of Politics, to be exact, is by Jeff Deist. And it's a good little read. And as it says here, actor Chris Pratt finds himself a target of left Hollywood and the various social media forces for his apparent lack of support for Joe Biden, a sin in his industry. Yeah, I want a New World Order butt boy to be president. Pratt has endorsed neither Biden nor Trump, which seems eminently sensible for a boy next door type who plays superheroes and adventures in big blockbusters. But staying quiet is never enough for the political jackals who insist silence is violence and a form of privilege. Such her conformity. Trump is a Nazi. His electorate is full of hateful fascist enablers, and this is no time for quietude. To take matters worse, the reticent Pratt also belongs to a Christian church, which is anti-LGBT, which is to say not anti-LGBT at all, but simply not in full conformity with the language and demands of his accusers. When his actor friends and sometimes co-star Mark Ruffalo rushed to defend Pratt's character, the Twitterati reacted angrily but predictably. And Kat Klinsman says here, his church is anti-LGBTQ. This is extremely political at a time when people's rights and freedoms and very lives are at stake. That's how I see him living his life. Wow, you should just give this person a member to join the Ku Klux Klan. Very prejudicial, right? Yeah. And this is what Kinsman has to say. You, Mark, are in a position where you can talk to your friend about how his actions and inactions are harmful to people without the societal protections, platform, and wealth that you're too lucky to have. I hope you will. Thank you, Master. I'm going to let them know. We should let Kat Kinsman know, saying, I need a hero. I need a hero to show me how to right my rear end. That's what Lucy has to say. He goes to a church that harms LGBTQ plus people and defends that. This isn't it, Mark. Maybe stand up for your fans and be an ally while supporting your friend by helping him evolve. Change him, please. Change him. Telling hurt people they are wrong isn't helpful. Oh, Lucy. Lucy Rebel 20. Oh, I want her. I should follow her too. I want to be her friend, and she could tell me how to take a shower on her style. Okay, her way of taking a shower. So, I just love this stuff. And this is what Yolanda Machado has to say. Mark, while you have the privilege of his political choice not affecting you, the vote he cast for any GOP in this era is harming marginalized and vulnerable communities. If he is okay casting for a vote to someone who separates family and put kids in cages, he is not solid. Oh, wow. I just wonder what kind of men they have in their life, right? That's a question. Ice Cream Coffee. I like this. Oh, wait. Sassy Mayman, L.A. Good grief. And, of course, Ice Coffee Dream, which is at Clay Rising Sun. But be nice to be able not to be overly political. And this is what Roxanne has to say, Roxanne_MW. Political apathy is a luxury of the privileged. Yeah, they're going to tell us about how to be human. Yeah, good grief. So we'll continue on here. This is a classic case of the imposers positioning themselves as the imposed upon LGBT advocates who weaponize and contort simple words, but hurt, harm, apathy, privilege, marginalized, vulnerable in ways reminiscent of Orwell's politics, and the English language. They use words in consciously dishonest ways. They shift the parameters of what it means to support or oppose LGBT causes into a stark binary. You are for us or against us. Yeah, this is right out of the old saying. A lot of these little dinkleberries probably are. Man, I wouldn't be surprised if any of these dinkleberries have a "I Love Pol Pot" altar. Okay, that's from the Children of Khmer Rouge. All right. I know that's tongue-tied at times. I do apologize. Simply living ones peaceably is not an option in this bizarre world view. Bizarro, okay? And the opposers' unconditional terms change constantly, seemingly overnight. One cannot avoid conflict by being not overly political, as Ruffalo termed Pratt. The accusations against his church, for an example, amount to nothing more than a demand or unconditional surrender of any theology or doctrine which does not comport with today's instant, though far from universal, view of transgenderism. Unless and until that happens, his church is per se transphobic and evil. Indifference or even kind of loving disagreement cannot satisfy the imposers. Yes, you gotta think like me, be like me, and smell like me. It doesn't matter whether Pratt's church welcomes everyone, even those individuals it considers engaged in sin. Which presumably includes just about every person on earth. It does not matter whether Pratt is a good person or a friend to his fellow actors. His church must affirmatively endorse the views of LGBT activists. Pratt must actively endorse Biden. Anything else is weaponized privilege. Shoot. See, folks like that will hate me with a passion. Because I'll be ridiculing them to the core. Without even stressing. Of course, this is nonsense, but the imposers always claim to be the imposed upon. Media and politicians play along, and then social media voices join the chorus until the original reality becomes completely obscure. Both Chris Pratt and his church were minding their own business and not hurting anyone. The Biden and LGBT activists came looking for them, not the other way around. What incredible arrogance and hubris. This is real privilege. A privilege of demanding others not only share your political views, but also see the world in starkly political terms. This is real hate, actual hate, not the phony kind imagined on hate has no home here yard signs. When to take to an extremely positive rights worldview requires not only conformity and acquiescence with the political project of the day, but your affirmative participation, not keeping up with the latest outrage, political machinations, or campaign, not leading a holy political life, becomes a dereliction of duty. Political liberty is quite simple, but not easy. We all owe our fellow citizens a duty not to aggress against them or their property, and not to commit fraud against them. In the broader societal sense, we should all strive to be kind, open, and generous with everyone we meet, unless and until they give us the reason to be otherwise. But that's all we owe. Being apolitical or even apolitical is absolutely your right. Freedom of choice, folks. At best, politics is an uneasy and imperfect mechanism for peacefully transferring political power. At worst, it is barely a substitute for war. More commonly, politics is a turf battle waged by rival gangs to control the state apparatus. The turf is us and our money. Politics is not notable, virtuous, or even necessary. The people attack Chris Pratt, and even hoping to harm his career, reputation, and finances, hold no moral high ground. My great aunt, now departed, once told me about a decision she and her husband made as newlyweds just after World War II. Starting life together in a very modest house, they wanted to build lasting memories with family and friends. So they made a pact. They would never discuss politics in their home or allow guests to discuss politics. In her view, politics was like sex and religion, a private matter. They wanted to avoid the disharmony and rancor they had witnessed among their own parents and families a decade earlier over the Roosevelt administration's New Deal program. They determined their health and home would be devoted to happiness and a political refuge where every visitor would be welcome. The goal is less political. The goal is a less political world, not a world which bends to our political will. We are not imposers. So participate in politics and voting if you like, or refrain if you like. Voting is optional and anonymous for a reason, but never let anyone force you into taking a political stance or even hold a political stance. In 2020, privilege manifests as political extortion. Push back against these bullies. Absolutely correct on that one, without a doubt. And always I tell folks, it's good to have these great discussions in life and so forth. We're always going to have differences, even the ones we have a lot in common with. And it's okay. I'm politically charged a lot. One, because I do love my neighbor. I always chat with them on things in general. Not on a partisan basis, but principle. Natural rights has to be essential. Yeah, so politically speaking, I discuss these areas to people. Like in the Pinellas County area, for an example, they have the orders. You can't do this. You can't do. You got to wear your mask. You can't be less than 10 people. And even the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office supports it. What do these jerk-offs have in common? They breached their oath of office. These orders do not supersede Article 1, Section 2 of the Florida Constitution, basic rights. That you've got certain natural rights that are considered inalienable. All right. So, that's just an example. See, people can't tell you how to look, how to think, and how to wipe your rear end or how to talk to folks. We all have our flaws, of course. But don't tell people what to do, because it will burn you in the end. Mark my words on that one. And you got all these little prima donnas out there claiming to be political experts and these wannabe activists, which are most of them hired guns. Can't even tie their own shoelaces. I vote on principle. You can't take that away from me. Ever. And these people believe voting is the only way to get things changed. You got to put their feet to the fire. And the fact is this too, folks. You never trust the government. You always keep them on their toes. That's how we're supposed to be in these United States. So, do it out of your conscience, principles, but always examine what they achieve, policies, and what your laws, state and federal laws, have to say. Constitutions, that is. All right, well, I'm going to do one more here based on racism. World history, yes. And this one here from Lipton Matthews. Why racism can't explain Europe's drive for conquest and colonial power. There has been resurgence in investigating the imperial past of Europe. This came out in the 22nd of October, late that day. By consuming blistering critiques of European imperialism, one is likely to surmise that conquests are solely driven by hatred and racism. Some commentators imply that the purpose of territorial expansions was to satiate the racist desires of Europeans. Although racism became justification for Western supremacy, it was really the motivation for conquest. Historically, states have embarked on conquest to project political power. Conquering other states resulted in immense reputational gains for the victors. But we live in a knowledge-based society in which states compete to demonstrate technological and scientific superiority. Many cannot fathom the brutality of past conquest. Furthermore, since Europe in recent history rose to become the dominant world power, more people are inclined to discuss the colonization of Asia and Africa by Europe. Asian and Africans are a different race, so it's easy to misinterpret racism as a rationale instead of the defense of conquest. Europeans are frequently reminded that their ancestors committed atrocities against non-white individuals. Several writers opine that non-whites are still victims of European imperialism in denouncing Portugal's colonial past. Royal Braga writes that repairing the historical legacy of white supremacy and colonialism involves moving from denial to recognition in order to collectively transform the systematic forms in which it still lingers on, ideologically, institutionally, and psychosocially. Studying the implications of colonialism on development is a simple pursuit. It would be imprudent to form opinions without conducting through research to guide our thinking. Yet, moral indignation of left-leaning intellectuals is unwarranted. Unfortunately, rehashing the imperial legacies of Europe to indicate that former colonies are still unable to recover from the trauma of European rule is in vogue. Also, we must find it strange that intellectuals seem to forget that intra-European conquests were once prevalent. Despite the rise of historical emotionalism, the truth is that the colonization of non-white peoples by Europeans is part of the wider history of European conquest. Counter the current narrative. Europeans did not colonize Asian and African territories due to any innate hatred of non-whites. They aimed to acquire hegemonic status relative to rivals in Europe. If conquest had really been about validating white supremacy, Europeans would have not conquered each other. Hence, we must assess a conquest within broader framework of the intra-European warfare. Well, this is done. It will be shown for centuries. Europeans competed in hegemony in Europe. So there is nothing unusual about the fact that they later conquered non-Europeans. The comic book personalities of the Vikings are quite prominent in popular culture, but their role in conquest is less known outside the academy. Admittedly, their early raids were driven more by parochial concerns than imperial ambition. However, as their power increased, they sought to expand the sphere of influence. According, after deriving benefits from raids, they recognized that conquest would produce greater gains. Don Hadley succinctly points this out in her discussion on the Vikings. The political conquest of parts of Britain and Ireland by Scandinavians began to take shape in the 850s and 860s, and it can plausibly be argued that it was a product of a conscious effort on part, at least some of the raiders. Although Europeans are often criticized for changing societies of people they subdue, the Vikings demonstrate that their approach to the subjugation of Europeans was indeed similar. Angus A. Somerville and R. Andrew MacDonald acutely illustrate the effects of their exploits in their seminal text, The Vikings and Their Age. Viking raiding and settlement may have annihilated the indigenous British population in the northern islands of Orkney and Shetland. Whether that is the case or not, the islands and their inhabitants became Scandinavian in speech and culture. Vikings' attacks also resulted in the sale of victims into slavery. Jim Comer offers us a brief description of this process. Slavery was commonly in early Germanic times, and early Viking raids on Ireland and Scotland resulted in large numbers of captives, which the Vikings sold as slaves to the Byzantine and Muslim empires. Interesting there, right? Unlike their Viking ancestors, today the Swedes are not known for aggression, yet their imperial history is similar to that of Britain and France. Like other great powers under the spell of mercantilism, Sweden saw the acquisition of foreign territories as a route to wealth. Andreas Kaeskamp in History of the Baltic States provides a vivid account of Sweden's identity in Europe. Swedish King Gustav XI Adolf ruled in 1611 to 1632, create the most efficient military force in Europe, enabling Sweden to play a decisive role in European politics as a major Protestant power in the 30 Years' War. That's from 1618 to 1648. In the 17th century, Sweden essentially established dominion Baris Baltici hegemony in the Baltic Sea region. Not only did Sweden control Livland and the entire coastline of the Gulf of Finland, it also acquired the German territories on the southern Baltic coast during the 30 Years' War. And consistent with the empire building upon obtaining a territory, Sweden sought to transform the region's culture. As John Lindgren writes, in the Baltic provinces, Swedish law was introduced along with land and agrarian reforms designed to reduce the influence of the German atrocity and to consolidate Swedish power. It is beyond naive to assume that empires will not invest in strategies to augment power. To remain a successful empire, an imperial state must ensure that desperate groups are successfully brought under one regime. This is why they often seek to create cultural uniformity. Discussing empires without an acknowledgement of their objectives is simplistic and ahistorical. As such, revisiting the horrors committed by Europeans is the non-Western world to score political points is a futile exercise. In addition, the people in the developing world should become cognizant of the fact that though awful, the experiences of their ancestors are not unique to conquered peoples. After all, we have clearly shown that Europeans had no qualms about conquering and enslaving white people. Nevertheless, individuals living in the development world should not forget the history of colonialism, because it reminds them that weakness is a recipe for exploitation. This lesson they must learn. Interesting there. Very good stuff. And it says here, like a little footnote here, on the other hand, it is also evident to suggest that Viking rule also yielded positive outcomes. Somerville and MacDonald note that Viking settlement brought further social and economic change. To early medieval Ireland, entirely devoid of urban centers, their influence here was out of all proportion to the extent of settlement. Dublin, Waterford, Rexford, and Cork owe their origins to Viking settlements. According to Somerville and MacDonald, the ventures of the Vikings imply that conquest can induce positive developments. So you got to look at the other side too, how it benefit those individuals. And it's interesting. It's like, those going to be empires, conquests, and all that's been around for millenniums. It's not a white thing, black thing. It's a political thing. Nothing new at all. So you have to always look at these areas and study the past, because it's today's greatest teacher. And Lipton Matthews actually did a good job on this article here, so I gotta give him kudos to that. So one of the areas you gotta do is study the past and spread the love to your neighbors. That'll be real as it, to be very frank. I'd like to thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share this about your social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, or something that's interesting I want to check out, whatever you do, please send your correspondences with decorum. Furthermore, I'll leave the footnotes on my Spreaker page. If you want to email me, you can hit me at lookylucknumber3@gmail.com, or you can hit me at lookylucknumbers03@protonmail.com. Via donation, paypal.me/lookyluck3. Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading the love. And may your guardian spirits be with you.